The twin city of Ankh-Morpork, foremost of all the cities bounding the Circle Sea, was, as a matter of course, the home of a large number of gangs, thieves' guilds, syndicates, and similar organizations. This was one of the reasons for its wealth. Most of the humbler folk on the Widdershin side of the river in Morpork's mazy alleys supplemented their meager incomes by filling some small role for one or other of the competing gangs. So it was that by the time Hugh and Two Flower entered the courtyard of the Broken Drum, the leaders of a number of them were aware that someone had arrived in the city who appeared to have much treasure. Some reports from the more observant spies included details about a book that told the stranger what to say and a box that walked by itself. These facts were immediately discounted. No magician capable of such enchantments ever came within a mile of Morpork docks. It still being that hour when most of the city was just rising or about to go to bed, there were a few people in the drum to watch Two Flower descend the stairs. When the luggage appeared behind him and started to lurch confidently down the steps, the customers at the rough wooden tables, as one man, looked suspiciously at their drinks. Broadman was browbeating the small troll who swept the bar when the trio walked past him. "What the hell's that?" he said.
"Just don't talk about it,"
hissed Hugh. Two Flower was already thumbing through his book. "What's he doing?" said Broadman, arms akimbo.
It tells him what to say. I know it sounds ridiculous,"
muttered Hugh. "How can a book tell a man what to say?"
"I wish for an accommodation, a room, lodgings, the lodging house, full board, are your rooms clean, a room with a view. What is your rate for one night?"
said Two Flower in one breath. Broadman looked at Hugh. The beggar shrugged.
He's got plenty money,"
he said. "Tell him it's 3 copper pieces, then, and that thing will have to go in the stable." Said the stranger. Broadman held up 3 thick red fingers, and the man's face was suddenly a sunny display of comprehension. He reached into his pouch and laid 3 large gold pieces in Broadman's palm. Broadman stared at them. They represented about 4 times the worth of the Broken Drum, staff included. He looked at Hugh. There was no help there. He looked at the stranger. He swallowed. "Yes," he said in an unnaturally high voice, "and then there's meals, of course. You understand? Yes? Food? You eat? No?" He made the appropriate motions.
"Foot?"
said the little man. "Yes," said Broadman, beginning to sweat. "Have a look in your little book, I should." The man opened the book and ran a finger down one page. Broadman, who could read after a fashion, peered over the top of the volume. What he saw made no sense.
"Food," said the stranger. "Yes. Cutlet, hash, chop, stew, ragout, fricassee, mince, collop, souffle, dumpling, blancmange, sorbet, gruel, sausage, not to have a sausage, beans, without a bean, kickshaws, jelly, jam, giblets." He beamed at Broadman.
"All that?" said the innkeeper weakly.
It's just the way he talks," said Hugh. Don't ask me why. He just does."
All eyes in the room were watching the stranger, except for a pair belonging to Rincewind the Wizard, who was sitting in the darkest corner nursing a mug of very small beer. He was watching the luggage. Rothwindwind. Look at him, scrawny, like most wizards, and clad in a dark red robe on which a few mystic sigils were embroidered in tarnished sequins. Some might have taken him for a mere apprentice enchanter who had run away from his master out of defiance, boredom, fear, and a lingering taste for heterosexuality. Yet around his neck was a chain bearing the bronze octagon that marked him as an alumnus of Unseen University, the high school of magic, whose time and space transcendent campus is never precisely here or there. Graduates were usually destined for mageship at least, but Rincewind, after an unfortunate event, had left knowing only one spell and made a living of sorts around the town by capitalizing on an innate gift for languages. He avoided work as a rule, but had a quickness of wit that put his acquaintances in mind of a bright rodent. And he knew sapient Pearwood when he saw it. He was seeing it now, and he didn't quite believe it. An archmage, by dint of great effort and much expenditure of time, might eventually obtain a small staff made from the timber of the sapient pear tree. It grew only on the sites of ancient magic. There were probably no more than 2 such staffs in all the cities of the Circle C. A large chest of it? Rincewind tried to work it out, and decided that even if the box was crammed with star opals and sticks of auriculatum, the contents would not be worth 1/10 the price of the container. A vein started to throb in his forehead. He stood up and made his way to the trio. "May I be of assistance?" he ventured. "Show off, Rincewind," snarled Broadman. "I only thought it might be useful to address this gentleman in his own tongue," said the wizard gently. "He's doing all right on his own," said the innkeeper, but took a few steps backward. Rincewind smiled politely at the stranger and tried a few words of Chimeran. He prided himself on the fluency in the tongue, but the stranger only looked bemused. "It won't work," said Hugh knowledgeably. "It's the book, you see. It tells him what to say. Magic." Rincewind switched to High Borgravian, to Banglamesht, Sumtree, and even Blackarugu, the language with no nouns and only one adjective, which is obscene. Each was met with polite incomprehension. In desperation, he tried heathen trobe, and the little man's face split into a delighted grin. "At last," he said. "My good sir, this is remarkable." Although in trobe, the last word in fact became a thing which may happen but once in the usable lifetime of a canoe, hollowed diligently by axe and fire from the tallest diamond wood tree that grows in the noted diamond wood forests on the lower slopes of Mount Awaiwa, home of the fire gods, or so it is said. "What was all that?" said Broadman suspiciously. "What did the innkeeper say?" said the little man. Rincewind swallowed. "Broadman," he said, "2 mugs of your best ale, please." "You can understand him?" "Oh, sure." Tell him he's very welcome. Tell him breakfast is 1 gold piece." For a moment, Broadman's face looked as though some vast internal struggle was going on, and then he added with a burst of generosity, "I'll throw in yours too." "Stranger," said Rincewind levelly, "if you stay here, you will be knifed or poisoned by nightfall. But don't stop smiling, or so will I." "Oh, come now," said the stranger, looking around. "This looks like a delightful place, a genuine Morporkian tavern. I've heard so much about them, you know, all these quaint old beams, and so reasonable, too." Rincewind glanced around quickly in case some leakage of enchantment from the magician's quarter across the river had momentarily transported them to some other place. No, this was still the interior of the drum, its walls stained with smoke, its floor a compost of old rushes and nameless beetles, its sour beer not so much purchased as merely hired for a while. He tried to fit the image around the word quaint, or rather the nearest Trobe equivalent, which was that pleasant oddity of design found in the little coral houses of the sponge-eating pygmies on the Orohai Peninsula. His mind reeled back from the effort. The visitor went on. "My name is Two Flower," and extended his hand. Instinctively, the other three looked down to see if there was a coin in it. "Pleased to meet you," said Rincewind. "I'm Rincewind." "Look, I wasn't joking. This is a tough place." "Good! Exactly what I wanted." "Eh? What is this stuff in the mugs?" "This? Beer." "Thanks, Broadman. Yes, beer. You know, beer." "Ah, the so typical drink. A small gold piece will be sufficient payment, do you think? I do not want to cause offense." It was already half out of his purse. "Ugh!" croaked Rincewind. "I mean, no, it won't cause offense." "Good. You say this is a tough place? Frequented, you mean, by heroes and men of adventure?" Rincewind considered this. "Yes," he managed. "Excellent. I would like to meet some." An explanation occurred to the wizard. "Ah," he said, "you've come to hire mercenaries." In Trobe, this would actually be warriors who fight for the tribe with most milknut meal. "Oh, no, I just want to meet them, so that when I get home I can say that I did it." Rincewind thought that a meeting with most of the drum's clientele would mean that Two Flower never went home again, unless he lived downriver and happened to float past. "Where is your home?" he inquired. Broadman had slipped away into some back room, he noticed. Hugh was watching them suspiciously from a nearby table. "Have you heard of the city of Bespelagic?" "Well, I didn't spend much time in Trobe. I was just passing through, you know." "Oh, it's not in Trobe. I speak Trobe because there are many Petrobi sailors in our ports. Bespelagic is the major seaport of the Agatian Empire." "Never heard of it, I'm afraid." Two Flower raised his eyebrows. "No? It is quite big. You sail turnwise from the Brown Islands for about a week, and there it is. Are you all right?" He hurried around the table and patted the wizard on the back. Rincewind choked on his beer. The counterweight continent.